Hello again. We're going to carry on talking about my life today. I've had a shower and stuff and got ready, and I'm I'm ready to talk again. This one may not be particularly nice. I mean, I don't know if any of these are nice or not. I hope they at least bring some comfort or some memories. This one's going to go into something that's caused me and my mum and my sister, I imagine, quite a bit of trauma or quite a bit of pain over the years. And it might also be awkward if my brother hears these to hear it because it refers to his father. We're not so much going to be talking on specific, like my life itself. We're going to just talk on that period for this one because I'd rather put all this together as one excerpt. I've got some water, by the way. So, my mum met my brother's father, Giulio. I want to say in about 2001, probably. We were still at the flat at the time at Hall Park Close, and yeah, I think she met him. I think through a night out with Karen, but I could be wrong there. I don't actually know how she met him, and that's just it, really. I don't. It's not really a subject you can broach with her, nor would I want to. What I do know is that he came into our lives pretty quickly, very quickly, in fact. My mum had been single, as far as I'm aware, since her and my father split up. Um, and Julio came into our lives and was basically there all the time. Well, not all the time, but a lot of the time. From that point onwards, it wasn't a slow process. It wasn't um, gradual. It was immediate, pretty much. Not immediate. That's the wrong way to phrase it, but it was fast. I remember when he first came into our lives. We're still talking very early for me, where I don't really remember a whole lot. But he came into our lives very quickly, and he tried to ingratiate himself with me, certainly, and my sister. He bought a games console over. I think it was a PS1. Would stick a load of films on for us to watch and stuff. And obviously, when you're a little child, you don't really you don't watch people as much, or at least not in the more studied way you would as a grown up. You don't read signs, you don't see people in that way, and so he seemed all right. He came into our lives. He was there. I I don't think my grandparents particularly liked him. Basically, very quickly on, but I could be wrong there. I don't have many early memories. I remember we went to his, I think it was his brother's wedding or something, Rick. I remember his dad crammed some garlic down my throat as a small child for perhaps being a little rude. I don't remember what I said. I definitely don't think it justified that to somebody that's not a member of your family. Um, but yeah, my mum ends up pregnant with my brother, and we move into his brother's home, his father's home. I mean, in Normanton on Balaclava Road. And from there, he really shows his true colours to us. The earliest memory I actually have of him was my mum was upstairs crying about something. I don't know what. And he would not allow my sister up to see her, and dragged her by the arm down the stairs. Now, if that happened now, um, I wouldn't react good, let's put it that way. But obviously, as a little kid, there's not a lot you can do. I don't think I'll talk too much on that particular period of my life. I ended up at Pear Tree School. I think Pear Tree Junior. I think it was my first junior school. We didn't live there long. We moved out. We moved to Cowley Street to get away from him. He fell out with my mum because he was an absolute arsehole. And from there, when we get to Cowley Street, the behaviours that I associate with him, I really do remember. I remember being home watching a film or something one day and hearing this rattling on a window, and it turns out chips are being smeared all over our windows by him. I remember he'd just appear places. I remember there was a real, I don't remember massive amounts of it, but there was a real directed campaign of harassment towards my mum. Um, she, I don't know how to phrase this. My mum also fell pregnant two more times, once with a baby who was premature, died in her womb, I think, called Charlie. And once I had another sister who was born prematurely, also, Olivia, um, who died, I think, within a couple of weeks. And at the time, I didn't really understand it myself. Um, I'd been to see them a couple of times. She was in an incubator. Um, um, and looking back on it now, I feel really, really emotional about it. But at the time, I was just a little kid, so I didn't really realize the severity of that. And then when she passed away, my mum, I remember my grandparents, I think, picked me up from school on that day or came over with us or something. Um, and I remember them supporting my mum and explaining what had happened. Um, and ever since that day, my mum has had problems. I can't put into words how hard that must have been for her. And I wish I had been a bit older and been able to support her instead of playing up and everything being about me as it was at the time. Um, I also, I don't know how much to put on here, but I should probably just say everything, I think, because that's the point of these, to leave exactly how I feel behind. I wish, no, looking back, I feel a lot stronger about it now than I did when I was little. Because again, I didn't really understand. I didn't grasp. Um, I'd never lived with her, and so um, I don't know. It just didn't hit me the same way it did my mum, and it was never going to. My mum carried her, but I know that yeah, I looking back on it now, I really do struggle talking about it. I struggle talking about this whole period of life because it was so difficult and still is. So I guess for me, looking back now, it's cruel. It's unfair on my mum, um, and seeing the impact it's had on her over the years, coupled with many other things, behavioural problems from me, all sorts of stuff. My brother's father. Um, it's horrible. It's something I wish I could wave a magic wand and take all that away from her a lot of the time. But instead, I just made things worse. Yeah, I guess I'll take a minute to try and put into words how that whole period affected me, because I don't want to dwell too much on Julia or Olivia. These are things I don't remember completely. Uh, I have memories of both periods of my life. I remember certainly that when PC Pat Rainsford was investigating Julio or trying to stop him, I'm pretty sure he was arrested at a letterbox, at a phone box or something. Um, and I remember my mum cheered audibly at it, and that's a good thing. I feel really awkward whenever my brother mentions his dad, which isn't often, um, he had a line of communication with him not so long back, and I try not to comment on it at all, really, because it's his relationship with his father. Neither of our parents were saints, but I have to also bear in mind the impact it had on me, which was huge. We're talking a period of my life where I was just starting to become conscious of the world around me. I recognize I'm not looking at the camera very much now. I'm trying to find the way of saying these things because I have never really sat and spoke about any of this properly. I spoke about it in bits in hospital. Um, I spoke about it with counselors at school and college, but never really, really in depth. Um, yeah, I was at a time in my life where you're just starting to learn things. I'd already had the upheaval of moving house. I'd lost two siblings, but which, like I say, didn't especially impact me the way they would other people, but they still hurt. And it was more seeing how broken my mum was for a long time. Um, oh, so I guess what I was going to get onto was the way it made me uh, think and feel. You never know what you were coming home to when Julia was around. And I don't know whether I should. No, I'm going to. I need to be honest on these. I need to lay my account out there of my life. I said not everything would be positive, not everything would be negative. So I do have a parallel there with most of my childhood from that point, which is because my mum was so affected by what had happened, and because me and my sister were putting more pressure on her by misbehaving, by playing up, because of the stuff with Julio, because of the stuff with Olivia. She turned to drink, and my mum was my mum is a lovely person. She really is. She's the most caring person you could meet in the sense that she will do anything for anyone. But there is also the side of her that struggles. And believe me, this comes from a place of compassion. This doesn't come from judgment. This doesn't come from using my last few days to sit and slate people. This is completely the opposite. This is pure compassion I have over this, which is my mum. I think the only way she could get by for a while was drinking. And so, like I say, there's a parallel with what I said before about not knowing what you were coming home to. That does carry over throughout most of my um, childhood from that point on. And again, I contribute to that. I'm not in any way trying to blame anyone. I'm not slating anyone. I had plenty of good memories, and it wasn't always bad. But there were days where, of course, there were. Yeah, uh, going back to that, having drawn that parallel, going back to Julio, I don't think it's any particular surprise that I didn't have a father figure around when I was younger, and then that I was exposed to the stalking behaviours, the constant stuff being turned upside down, the police involvements, my mum being in pieces over Olivia, to see that something about me didn't click growing up. Um, some of those behaviours uh, carried over to me when I went through the school system. Certainly a couple of times. Not later on. Later on, I managed to turn that part around. I was just disruptive, but for a couple of years, I mimicked behaviours I'd seen. I didn't realise I was doing it. But yeah, having done years of psychology, having also studied psychology, yeah, I can see those parallels there, and I can say that was probably that was where things started going wrong. And I can't say honestly that it's a big thing for me now, because it's not. I don't think about it anymore. But I do have memories of seeing my mum be shoved across the room. I do have memories of seeing my sister be dragged halfway down a flight of stairs. Um, I do remember hearing the story of him having a go at my mum while she was pregnant in front of a bloody midwife or something, or a nurse or whatever. Um, yeah, there's a part of me, and I don't want this to sound the way I know it sounds, but there's a part of me that wishes I could do him some damage over it. Like, seriously, wishes I could, because that man stole a chunk of my childhood. He stole a chunk of my sister's, and he stole um, a chunk of my mom's life, and left her with a lot of pain. I didn't realize this one was going to be so difficult to talk about, actually. I really am struggling to find words. It's a miserable one, I know it is. It's not something I can sit and smile and laugh through. Um, and we're going to, or I'm going to talk about plenty of things over the next few hours of footage that aren't good all through my life. This was where my life started going poor, um, and it wouldn't really get any better. Yeah. Uh, mm, I remember. Um, what else do I remember from that era? So I had no friends while we were living there. We weren't there long. I don't think it was more than a few months. But I feel also like it must have been, because my brother, Charlie, Olivia, there must have been a longer or more prolonged period of time, unless my mum started seeing him again when we moved on, which I don't think she did. So I can't, in my head, put that. I sort of, when I think about where I was in terms of living, I do it in terms of school. Um, so I know that I was at Carlisle until completion. Um, and then I believe we moved to there, and so I went to Pear Tree, which I assume would have been Pear Tree Junior. Um, and then we moved to Cowley Street, where I first went to Portway Junior for a couple of years, I believe, and then finished up at Markeaton. Um, the problem is, I can't put into my head how that all slots together. Um, I'm fairly. I will have to have a look. I could do that now, but I won't. I'll probably speak on it next time I record, just to see if I'm correct. But I think it was Pear Tree Junior I attended. I think they had a no uniform policy there, from what I remember, which would mean I did a few months or a year there, then went to Portway, and then went to Markeaton, which actually, I'm not sure if that rings true, because I think I started the first year at Portway. I think. So I don't honestly know. It's something I'd have to look into. I can remember what the school looked like roughly, in terms of you went in the side straight into the yard, and then that's all I remember. So I'd be able to see it if I looked on Google Maps, assuming it hasn't massively changed. Lord knows, Murray Park definitely has, as has Woodlands. I've been past both of those in recent months. I mean, Murray Park I go past regularly because I live around the corner from it. Um, yeah. Uh, so that also actually that caused some real turmoil. Moving schools, not having any friends initially, moving again. That was fine. That was, people move schools, whatever. Um, but there really was, through that period of my life, an unsettled nature. Um, like I say, both at home and just in terms of moving homes and schools and stuff, and not having friends and all that stuff. Um, yeah, all that really does blend together to form a really awful period of my life, and one that I do not like reliving. I don't remember specific incidents so well, but I just remember the vibe. I remember the moment to moment feeling. I remember the sensation of thinking when I left school. Um, what's it going to be like today? Um, yeah, there was just some real nastiness around that time. In terms of the things I enjoyed doing, the things I said I wouldn't go through, like actual, chronological things I enjoy, blah, 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 today. But I can do a little bit. I'll talk specifically the period shifting through until we get to Portway. Just because it makes sense to do this small chapter of my life, which was quite consequential as one video. Um, I I still liked Pokemon very much. I remember, I think there were two bedrooms at Julio's house. Me and my sister shared the one on the right as you went upstairs. My mum and him shared the one on the left, I think. Pretty sure there was an attic. Well, there was an attic, I remember that. But I remember reading a couple of proper Pokemon novels at the time. I think I was getting into Power Rangers as well. I think I probably liked that before we left Hall Park Close. I think that was probably towards the end of then. In fact, it must have been, because the series of Power Rangers I really liked was Lightspeed Rescue, which I actually rebought the DVD of a few years ago. And I think that I had in the very early 2000s. So yeah, I'd have been probably 6 or 7 when we left there. 8-ish, 8 or 9 going forward. I don't remember a lot of how my tastes shifted from there. Like, in terms of actual tastes, I'll talk more about individual things after I'm done speaking on my life. So I guess it's easier to save that for that, because I just don't remember. I remember Busted and Britney Spears were big at the time. I remember my mum had a Pink CD. Yeah, there's very little of that era that really leaps out to me as something I remember. My dad was still on the scene. It's weird because I was scrolling through his Facebook feeds recently. They're from years ago. But I found the one from when I went to see him in 2013, and it said, "Oh, it's been 13 years since I've seen my son." Now, I'd have been 18 at the time. I definitely wasn't 5 last time I saw him, and I know that because I know definitely that I got picked up from Cali Street one day. So yeah, the timeline there doesn't add up, but whatever. I really don't have a lot else to say on this particular chapter of my life. I'm sorry that it's not been as positive as, or not positive, but not as easy listening, and obviously I'm pretty clearly not happy talking about it. I've tried to skim through it as best I can, to be honest, because there's not a lot specific to say except that it was not good. Like I say, I wish more than anything I could just go back in time and support my mum more, because I wasn't feeling it the way she was. Or I was, of course I was. I was sad, but I mean, it wasn't actually hitting me the same way, whereas I could see my mum was in pain at all times. And I just wish I'd been more aware. Yeah. I really have this constant feeling that I've let everybody down. And I know I have, I consistently do. But I feel like I did at all times in my life. And I know that's not true. Obviously, I know there's good times and bad times, but the bad times outweigh the good with me. And yeah, it's just not good for me to have had so much bad around me when the people around me were struggling. Yeah. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we'll be moving on to Cowley Street, which is a place I have a lot of memories with. I've actually got a lot more to say about that place than I do anything before it. I had a couple of really good friends when I was there. Um, I just there's a lot more to say about that place. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.